experience as you, that it's more like an energetic. It can contribute to understand these things.
Yeah.
But the energetic shift is more beyond words.
Yeah, totally.
And to me, it's very obvious that on an energetic level, it's not somewhere to arrive where it's an end station. Because energetically, it's obvious that everything is fluid and changing.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of annoyed for many years with teachers and gurus that kind of refers to an end station of enlightenment.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to hear you say something about that.
And that's such a brilliant point. So remember I said earlier, like, knowledge is infinite. It's the same with the evolution of the human form, is it's infinite. But who you truly are is here, so that's not something that can evolve. Like, your essence can't evolve because it's not a thing, and it's only things that can. But on the human level, you infinitely evolve. Like, the human doesn't become enlightened or wake up. I use that terminology in order to communicate, but the human doesn't actually wake up or become enlightened. It's impossible. You can never arrive. I say that there's two reasons why that happens in teaching. Is firstly, it is really hard to talk about this subject without a beginning and end, because we're talking in a language that starts and finishes. So this is really hard. So that's number one. Number two is that some speakers still mix the two, and they might do that because they don't know that they're still mixing the two, or they might do that because they feel that's the best way to teach. That's unknowable. And third is it might be a personality type. Like, so somebody that's a certain personality type will want to speak more definitely and more in absolutes. Fifthly, it's really hard to advertise non-duality. Like, you won't get anywhere. like how do you, like, it's easier now. So I don't advertise because it's my personality type. So all I do is I do my talks on YouTube, and then YouTube advertises for me because it's suggested it to people. And if people like the way I talk, then they carry on listening. If they don't, they just switch it off. But I never have to advertise. Like, it's just they either click, they look at the title and they click it, or they don't. And every so often I have to advertise. Like, when I came here, I had to write like a title for this talk and like what it's going to give you. And I'm like, oh no. So luckily Andreas helped me. Like, because that's really hard. So imagine, like, 20 years ago, how does somebody advertise in the local newspaper a talk on non-duality? It's like, no one will get enlightened. This isn't about enlightenment. Like, so I can understand how that evolved. But I think that a new wave of teachers that are coming out, like myself and other teachers, and like, it's like everything, it always evolves, and that language is beginning to be dismissed, the same as consciousness, because consciousness too is a limitation. Although Buddhism already talked about that, like Buddhists say it's emptiness and fullness, like consciousness too is form, like they also distinguish that as a word, like it's more mysterious than consciousness. But it's also, again, really difficult to break out of the confines of talking without consciousness. Like, consciousness is a great way to speak to a group of people, especially spiritual people that already know that word. But new, it's like everything. It's like our evolution is so rapid. Like, you look at like a 3-year-old now on an iPad, and they like already know how to use it, and they're like blah 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 blah. Like, they can do everything better than we can. And it's the same with this subject. We'll begin to speak at it in a more rapid way and without so many limitations. You know, in 30, 40 years' time, I will be past it, and I will be a limited way of speaking, and there'll be new, fresh people that come up, and they'll speak of it in such more inventive ways, and they'll push the edges and the boundaries, and this life force will give over to something else. And that's the beauty of non-duality, is it's not a dogma, it's not a fixed point. It's something like on the human level that's always evolving, and that's what we do on if we look in our societies. Like, we haven't quite worked out how to do that with capitalism, like how to continuously evolve without totally wrecking our planet. But it's possible, like, if we start going out into space. But that's what this world is. It's an infinite possibility, and it's always expanding. And so that's what it will be like. And I wholeheartedly say I absolutely have neurosis that I'm working on and that I will evolve from, and I look at, and I don't always communicate in the correct way. I try my best, but I fuck it up. I say swear words at the wrong place, I lose my temper. And with each of that, I see it as a learning block. With each of my failings on the human level, it's another place for me to grow and to expand my knowledge, my understanding, and the human condition. And I hope that I never arrive at a point where I think I'm done. I'm sure that too will arrive. Like we do all types of mistakes, but I hope that I always have that open heartedness. It's also, after you've been talking for 50 years, if I talk that long, it might be hard not to fall into that. To feel like after 50 years, like, come on, I really have something to say here. I've really arrived somewhere. So that's my answer to that.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.